The Dallas Cowboys got a big win in week 4 against the New England Patriots. Who were 3 hidden stars from this performance? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. Check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. On today's show, we're breaking down the All-22 film from the Cowboys' Week 4 win over the Patriots and talking about 3 hidden gems from that performance. Landon, I want to start with Jake Ferguson because I really feel like this is one of the most complete games that I've seen from him as a pro. What did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would go so far to say that it just felt like what we're seeing from Jake Ferguson so far this season is as well-rounded tight end play as the Cowboys have had in a while. I mean, I think Dalton Schultz obviously was a very successful player and productive player for the Cowboys. But even, despite coming in with, kind of good technique early in his career, just never really was kind of a punishing blocker. I mean, he was more of a get in the way blocker.
He was a functional blocker at times.
Yeah. And he was definitely more of a receiver. And once he kind of added that element to his game, like was really someone that Dak could rely on. Ferguson, to me, has taken that and kind of expanded even further. I mean, I think as a receiver, you're seeing especially this last game, this is kind of the iteration of what we saw in training camp, a guy that was a reliable target, caught almost everything. And you saw it a lot last year too, like where he had a high efficiency rate of converting targets to catches.
Yeah.
And early on this year, we saw some drops. I think he had 2 drops or maybe 3 drops in the first game. And kind of, I just felt like it took a little while to get his feet underneath him. But now what we see, especially in this game, was a guy that's not only playing at his best football, but extremely well-rounded football for a tight end one. We saw it all in the receiving game, whether it's getting up and getting the ball, catching the ball short and turning it upfield and breaking tackles to get first downs. I think he had something. He was 7 for 7 on his targets to catch
77 yard.
Yeah, for 77 yards, and 5 of those were first downs, and that just kind of shows you just how valuable he was specifically, and maybe too specifically, between the 20s for this offense, right? I think the one thing that after watching this game that really stuck out to me is that we really need to find a way to get him red zone targets, because I think that's he was all over the place when it was moving the ball between the 20s, and I only think he got one real target in the red zone, and that was kind of on that, excuse the phrasing, flippant sort of shovel pass that Dak made. So I just thought he had a fantastic game. And then as a blocker, just moving bodies, just saw really, really successful, not just getting in the way, but actually, physically affecting and blowing people back a little bit. He's just playing very well, and it's just an extremely well-rounded tight end. Very impressive performance on Sunday.
Yeah, I've got a lot to add here. So first of all, I agree with you on the red zone targets. The only thing I would say is they need to get him red zone targets when he's going vertical and not just sideline to sideline, because I think that's the mistake the Cowboys are using too much is when they get inside the 10-yard line, it seems like everything is like to the flat for Ferguson, and it's just too hard to catch the ball, turn around, and get up in, get into the end zone from that spot, unless there's blown coverages and stuff. And I think teams by now have kind of figured out like that's the way the Cowboys like to use Ferguson. I'd like to see him on more, like the Y stick stuff where it's a little bit of an option route, or he can box out a defender, or even on a slant route where he can use his big body. At least that's how I would like to see him use. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. More crossing stuff. I mean, it's tough to try to run a lot of crossers in the red zone because everything's condensed and you just don't have a ton of time to develop. But I do agree, like the slant stuff that could work in kind of just getting vertical and maybe to the end line, not quite a fade, but just like something where he got closer to the end line, you got out to him quickly.
We can use his body to shield
use
guys.
his body. Yeah. That's the one thing that we saw early this year that when he was catching the football that we haven't seen previously is that he does have some vertical to him. He obviously didn't test well necessarily in that area, but in at the combine, but we've seen it in his game here. So I would like to see a little more of that, just kind of putting the ball where only he can let him use his body and then come down with it. Because look, I mean, obviously the red zone offense was what it was. We can talk about that later if we want, but it just feels like Ferguson has earned the right to kind of get some more targeting down there. And considering his success rate, I just think it's a match made in heaven there.
So I agree with you on everything you said about him as a receiver, but where I was actually even more impressed with him is as a blocker, right? Like, I thought he was a fine blocker at times last year. There were obviously some games where he struggled, but now it's a strength. Like, I mean, you can make a case that he's already the best blocking tight end on this team. And Pro Football Focus agrees right now of all tight ends that have played 100 snaps, he's third in the NFL in run blocking grade behind Dallas Goedert and George Kittle. Like, he's become a weapon as a blocker. And that was really the next step that he needed to make to become not just a tight end one, but like a high end tight end one down the road.
Yeah, honestly, like I'm not surprised that he has gotten to this place as a blocker. I've always felt like that was going to be a huge part of his game. But I mean, the fact that we are here in combination of him playing the way that he is as a receiver, that's so incredibly impressive because, you're seeing him. I mean, was the highest targeted receiver on the team, was the most successful receiver on the team last week or last Sunday. And then on top of that is a plus blocker, he's
giving you value in the run.
He knocked Judon out of the game at one point.
I know.
He was so physical with one of his blocks and just several different points where you just see him helping with the fits, helping on a double, just always in the right spot. He's just strong. He's just stronger than a lot of the tight ends that we've had in a while. And he shows that, and he shows his ability to move guys. And yeah, I think that's really this, what I expected was for him to come in as a very good blocker with some better receiving stuff, doing kind of the stuff we've seen like out in the flat and breaking tackles is, just a strong player, but he's become much more fluid as a receiver than I ever expected. And he's, his ceiling is so much higher now than I kind of anticipate going into the year. And it really is exciting.
And I'm sure there's people listening that are thinking, okay, if the Cowboys knew they had this in Ferguson, why did they spend a second round pick on Luke Schoonmaker? And I would say, first of all, he's a different type of player. Like I think he's a more vertical player than what Ferguson is. And actually, you saw that in week 4. He just didn't make the catch. He did everything right on that play except for make the catch.
That's right.
But at the same time, you're seeing in this offense how important the tight end position is. You've got to be able to block. You've got to be able to make plays after the catch if you're going to be running this many slants and flat routes, right? So rather than hoping that Sean McEwen or Peyton Hendershot could fill those roles if Jake Ferguson were to go down, now you have somebody else who has the athleticism, the size, the blocking ability to help you out there.
Yeah, and Scooney has been a valuable player so far. I mean, like he's gotten in there and been useful as a blocker. He just hasn't developed as a receiver quite yet. Obviously, catching that second touchdown would have been a big thing for him. But I have no doubts that he'll get there, and that once he does, that's going to be a really dangerous combination to have. That kind of dynamite twin tight ends, because even previous when you thought it was Hendershot, like. Schoon can do things that Hendershot can't do. Yeah. I mean, like he's just a different type of player. And I don't know that Hendershot was ready to kind of come in here and be a tight end too. He is better as sort of a kind of a specialty player, just kind of for mismatch player.
And obviously everybody knows how much I like Sean McEwen, but Schoonmaker's already a better blocker and he's got far more athleticism and far more receiving upside. Yeah. So it's not hard to see why the Cowboys still, they want to invest in that position. It's important, a position that they believe is very important to winning in the NFL. I can't blame them at all for wanting to take a gamble there. Landon, let's talk about some other players who had fantastic performances in week 4. We will get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Gametime is the fastest and the easiest way to buy tickets for all of the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you, with killer deals on deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying your tickets. I absolutely love Gametime. It's what I use to buy tickets to football games. I like to go to college games a lot. It's absolutely fantastic. My favorite part is that you go on the app, it shows you exactly how much you're going to be paying per ticket, including all the fees and all the taxes and all that kind of stuff. So you're not surprised when you check out. But I also love how they show you exactly what your seat is going to look like. So you can get an idea of, okay, maybe I'm going to be closer to the bathroom here. This is closer to the concession stand. Everything is so easy to use. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, use promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Locked On NFL, all one word, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. Every dayers. On tomorrow's show, we're going to answer your Twitter questions. So make sure you send them in to us at Marcus_Mosher, at McCoolBCB, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. Landon, we got to talk about our left guard, Tyler Smith, who made the second start of his career at guard. Pretty impressive.
Pretty good. Pretty good. Look, here's the thing. It was a position that there was a lot of consternation about all during the preseason, and all based on the fact that there was an assumption that Tyler Smith wasn't going to end up at left guard, and what would happen if he didn't. Fast forward to where we are now. Tyler Smith is not only playing left guard, but I think you can make an argument that, especially with a kind of a hobbled Zach Martin at this point, Tyler Smith might be your best offensive lineman.
He's been your best offensive lineman.
And I think that, that's something that you saw a little bit kind of going into the end of the year last year, that like even at playing tackle, when they were moving guys in and Tyron came back, you were looking at what you were getting from Tyron Smith at right tackle and what you were getting from Tyler Smith at left tackle. And you're like, man, Tyler Smith's doing a pretty good job considering he's a rookie and was a guy that everyone was terrified about. So, playing because of, a holding issue that everyone was just certain he couldn't get over. And here we are now he's a guy that is, he's got very nice technique. He's not perfect. It's certainly better than we had hoped for, I think, at this point, but it still isn't perfect yet. But everything else about him is drawn up in a lab for a guard. Like he is so powerful. When he gets his hands on you, it's over. He can move, and he moves with a level of athleticism. Like, you could, when you watch guys move, especially offensive linemen, like when they're on the hoof, like you could tell the level of athleticism they are. You could tell if you'd want that guy in the low post in basketball or not, and Tyler Smith is one of those guys that seems comfortable in his body. He's not lumbering. He looks athletic as he's moving. He's got good agility for a guy his size. And he has just been basically locking onto dudes and burying them on the second level when he gets there. And then in the pass game, he's just been incredibly reliable. He's, he gets a punch out. He hasn't had to face a ton of resistance so far, despite the fact that he's played some pretty darn good defensive tackles. And I've just been super impressed with, his ability when he's been in there to just, pick it up and be a very, very good guard. Like you said, after only his second start in the NFL. It's crazy because I just had zero doubts that he was going to come in. Obviously after watching him training camp, but I just had zero doubts that he was going to come in and be a very, very good guard. He just has that kind of makeup, and in comparison to what he had to do last year, this is easy. This is easy. This is a much easier situation than what he faced last year. And he looks like a guy who's completely comfortable with everything he's being asked to do.
So I have a take that I like 95% believe. I'm not 100% there, but I'm
Wow.
getting there.
A
You ready?
work in progress take. Let's
Work
hear it.
work in progress take. Tyler Smith last year at left tackle was so much better than I think anyone could have ever anticipated. By the end of the year, I think he graded out as one of the top 7 or 8 offensive linemen in the league down the
Mhm.
stretch. That left tackle position is just so much more valuable than guard. Like there's nobody's going to argue that, right? Left tackle is the money position when it comes to the offensive lineman. Having said that, I almost no matter what happens, I kind of want to leave Tyler Smith at left guard. Like I
Yeah.
want him to be a left guard moving forward. And maybe the Cowboys next year they draft a left tackle and try to find somebody there because I think there's a chance that you're getting like special play at left guard. And you saw it in this game, like his athleticism is crazy, being able to get to the second level and get to linebackers. And then the power, once he gets a hold of you, it's incredible. I never want to compare somebody to Larry Allen because it's
I
not
was
fair.
I wish you
not
could
fair.
see my screen right now. I was literally typing it in right now just to see exactly that, to see if he had ever gone back to tackle after switching to guard.
Right, Larry Allen played right tackle. I have absolutely no doubt he could have played left tackle at a Pro Bowl level. Like
He did play left tackle. He did play left tackle, I think, for 1 year, right before he switched to guard.
Yes.
But only 1 year.
You can still get your money's worth out of Tyler Smith playing left tackle. But if you want like, hey, this is a guy that has a chance to be like the best guard in football for 5 years, I think I would leave Tyler Smith there. I really would.
When I was watching the tape, I kept on thinking it's so funny to rewind a little bit. I was having a conversation on Twitter with Brandon Thorne and who I think wasn't it or someone else on Twitter about legacy numbers, right? And about how those numbers kind of pass on to the Cowboys like that, right? And they have 77 and 70 and these are all kind of legacy numbers. And 73 obviously is a legacy number for Larry Allen. And they kept on mentioning, hey, like we don't want to reference Larry Allen. They said they gave the exact same spiel that we just did. Like, hey, we don't want to talk about Lawrence Taylor, but Micah Parsons, right?
Yep.
We don't want to talk about Larry Allen, but Tyler Smith. I think they're very comparable players. I mean, it's not just that they wear the same number and they.
You mean the play styles comparable?
Their play styles are very comparable. Honestly, I think Tyler Smith. I mean, Larry Allen had legendary strength. Tyler Smith has some of the best strength in the league. Probably playing
just
like
natural
strength,
right?
Natural strength. Yeah. They wear the same number, and then obviously the transition. Right, Larry Allen came into the league as a tackle. And then end up playing at guard. They knew how good Larry Allen was the last 6 years of his career. Do they think that they could have played him at tackle? Absolutely. Zach Martin could play tackle, but the fact is that if you've got a guy who is otherworldly or exceptional specifically at a spot, even if it has less value, offensive line is a weak link system.
Yes.
So you can find a functional left tackle and play well as long as you've got good players across the rest of the line. I would, I think it's certainly something they should consider keeping him there, just because it's the Cowboys clearly have had something with finding offensive linemen, and it's just nice to have the luxury of a guy that is so valuable. Playing a position that he plays very well naturally. I think it makes a lot of sense.
And that was going to be my last point here, is that it's just guard is such a natural position for him. Like it shows off his strengths and it hides his weaknesses a little bit more. And again, Tyler Smith played really well at left tackle last year, but moving him inside and guard, giving him a lot of one-on-one matchups where he doesn't necessarily have to play in space a ton, just makes him such a unique player. I was blown away by him on tape.
Last thing, in a division where you're going to obviously be facing Jalen Carter for another 8 or 9 years, or however long the Eagles have him, and then Dexter Lawrence and all these guys.
Deron Payne,
Deron Payne. This is a division that has great defensive tackle play. I think it makes every bit of sense if you're going to have 6 of your games every single year against those guys, that you have some sort of answer inside.
And don't forget about the big matchups in the playoffs, like the 49ers who have Eric Armstead, Hargrave, and Javon Kinlaw. Like they have a lot of guys that they can throw at your interior offensive linemen. It's pretty nice to have an A++ guy at left guard. Let's talk about a couple of players on defense who maybe aren't even the top 5, top 6, top 7, top 8 players on defense that just had stellar performances in week 4. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Snap into action this season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That is $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the NFL action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, futures bets. You can bet on the Cowboys to win the division, to make the playoffs, to win the NFC, or even to win the Super Bowl. So many different fun bets out there. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. All right, Landon, one more player that I wanted to talk about before we head out. Doris Armstrong. When you just need somebody to kind of fill the gaps and do it extremely well, there's Doris Armstrong, who had, again, a really, really solid performance.
What a bizarre career Doris Armstrong has had, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, came into the league at like 20 years old. It feels like he's been on the team for a decade.
I was just going to do the running bit. How old do you think he is?
I was just pleased because I literally was going to look it up to try to say, but I don't remember off the top of my head. So I'm going to guess that he's 26.
I'm looking up it right now. Let's see. If I had to guess, I'd say 26. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean
26.
Yeah, that's just absolutely bizarre. I mean, like, seriously, it feels like he's been on the team forever, and he's still only 26.
Well, this is year 6.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, he came into the league as kind of this scrawny pass rusher with good length. He just looked like an NFL body at 20, right? He gets into the weight room, and he, for the first 3 to 4 years of being on this team, made it, like survived the roster, like made 53-man roster, made himself useful, became a really key special team player. And then about 2 years ago, something changed with Doris Armstrong, and I think it was Dan Quinn, honestly.
Yeah.
And he has just taken off in a way that it was incredible. They re-signed his contract after his 4-year deal. And it was with a nice chunk of change, and it was right after the Randy Gregory situation. So everyone was kind of poo-pooed the situation, but it ended up being one of the best signings the Cowboys did, simply because he is a guy that no matter what, play game in and game out, he will come in and give you 3 very good plays every game, whether it's
not only on defense.
No. He'll block a kick. He'll force a fumble on a kick return. He'll get a huge sack. He'll make a tackle for loss. He will knock a pass down. I mean, he'll scoop a ball up and run it back in for a touchdown. Like, he is the kind of guy that championship teams have, that when your superstars are all occupied, or they're exhausted, or you just need a play, and Micah Parsons is being triple teamed, and DeMarcus Lawrence is tired, and he is the guy that every team's going to forget about. And then suddenly here comes Doris Armstrong out of nowhere, playing the 3 technique. He's the guy that the only guy on that offensive line you didn't double team, and he wins his rep against a guard, and he gets a tackle for a loss. He forces a fumble. He strip sacks the quarterback. He's the kind of guy that he doesn't need a ton of reps. He'll play anywhere on that defensive line. You need to play outside and be a stout edge player gets the run. He is absolutely one of the most dependable guys you can put out there. You need him on 3rd down to reduce down as a B gap piercer, as a 3 technique. He's going to give you pressure like maybe one of the at a rate as the best defensive tackles in the league.
25% win rate right now.
25% win rate was absolutely ridiculous. The fact, if he was on any other team, we would all be talking about him as a Pro Bowler. He would be in the conversation as one of the best defensive ends in the league, honestly.
Right now on Pro Football Focus, he has graded out as the number 9 overall edge rusher. That's ahead of guys like Aiden Hutchinson, Trey Hendrickson, Khalil Mack. He also, this is what's fantastic, right? The run defense grade, 4th best in the NFL. He's really turned himself into a good run defender.
And he's gotten huge. I mean, that's the thing, is in these 6 years, he's really gotten enormous. And that's the thing I think I noticed this year. And if we go back and listen to some of these training camp reports, that I noticed. He wasn't in a lot of these practices because he was hurt or whatever. He was dealing some stuff. But the one thing I did notice about him is that he looks enormous this year. He's gained more shoulders and more arms, and so he looks like closer to 265, 270 than he ever has before. So, yeah, I just think that I've watched him week in and week out, and we're so enamored, rightfully so, with Micah Parsons, and DeMarcus Lawrence is having a career year and a resurgence like we never seen. Fowler had a huge strip sack, and obviously that's a huge thing. Sam Williams is the guy that we're waiting to kind of break out this year. But Doris Armstrong, once again, quietly comes in and is an absolute superstar and is producing at a rate that you just mentioned. He's clearing the minimum thresholds and still getting rated as top 10 defensive ends in the league, despite playing something like probably 35 snaps a game on defense. I'm just here to make sure that Doris Armstrong gets his flowers, because it is super well deserved.
Yeah, Cowboy fans should really try to appreciate him, because they're not going to have him next year. I'm going to tell you right now. He signed if I remember correctly, it was like 2 years, $13 million, $6.5 million a year. This is the last year of his deal, with the Cowboys having guaranteed money tied up into DeMarcus Lawrence next year, with Micah Parsons' deal coming up, drafting Sam Williams, probably bringing back Dante Fowler. I won't be shocked if Doris Armstrong, because he's going to be 27 going into next offseason. If somebody just looks at him like key special teamer, good run defender, gets sacks, high win rate, here's 4 years, $50 million to be our number 2 edge rusher.
Absolutely. I mean, and also if you needed him to, he could be. I mean, honestly, he earned the $13 million in almost special teams alone. like honestly, that's how good. It's not a joke. It's not a joke. That's how good Doris Armstrong is on special teams. And the fact is that he's this incredible player on special teams, this incredible player on defense, and his name just doesn't get mentioned a lot by anyone other than Cowboys fans. And I just want to make sure that we're mentioning his name enough, because the guy deserves all the money he's about to make next year. Even
among Cowboy fans, right? It's Parsons, it's Diggs, it's Lawrence, it's Leighton Vander Esch, it's Gilmore, it's Bland, it's Osa Digizua and Mozzie Smith. I mean, there's so many other names before you get to Doris Armstrong.
It's such a weird career. That's what it is. It's wild. It's just like kind of he flattened for a long time, but was good enough to continue to be part of the team. And then he went from being a key role player to I don't know what to call it, a superstar role player. I guess
I'll say this happened a lot more like in the 70s and 80s when there wasn't a salary cap, and you basically drafted guys and you let them sit for 3 or 4 years before they started to play. It doesn't happen very often in the NFL that somebody you draft doesn't really start to break out until year 5 and year 6, but that's absolutely what we're seeing here.
Yeah. It's rare that you sign a player to a second contract, and a mid-level second contract, and then by year 2, it looks like the best deal you have on the entire team. So
absolutely incredible. All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Again, tomorrow we'll be back to answer your Twitter questions, so make sure that you send them into us at Marcus_Mosier, at McCoolBCB. We are free and available on all platforms. Go check out our show on YouTube. Again, go follow Landon at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus_Mosier. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.